What's going on, guys? My name is Eric Piccione. I am documenting my journey to financial freedom. When the big topic of today is should you actually leave the US? I feel like a lot of people are scared to leave the United States for some reason, or they feel that they have everything set here. Why would they ever make the move? I'm not trying to provide or pressure anyone to feel like they need to move. I'm just providing a different perspective on my thoughts on the matter and why specifically my family is moving abroad. A couple key reasons, but we'll just bullet point it. So stay tuned real quick. I'm going to rapid fire this, going to read from my notes and see if it makes sense for you. And if it does, great. If not, no problem. At least you heard me out and saw my point of view on the matter. But firstly, I'm definitely not saying anyone should feel like they need to move abroad. It's definitely something that you should consider if you feel like you want a little bit more adventure in life. I think there's a lot of people that have this feeling in their heart that there's better opportunities out there for them. They want to live life to the fullest. You know, you only have one life, so why not adventure just a little bit and explore your horizons and just see what else is out there and open up your perspectives on the world. So, one of the things that's funny to me is my wife is Russian. We're actually going to live in Russia down the road. In the foreseeable future, we don't have a concrete date yet, but that is something that we are planning on doing. And we've also visited Ecuador in the past, so South America, and a lot of people on both topics, both countries. On one hand, they said Ecuador is extremely dangerous. You know, you'll probably become kidnapped by the cartel, and you definitely don't want to go there. Every country has their issues. Every country has crime. But one of the funny things is, upon visiting Ecuador, specifically Cuenca, we realized that this place isn't that bad. And the perspective of the people that were giving these opinions were from people that never went to visit those countries and explored and saw it with their own eyes. So, if you are planning on going abroad and moving outside of the US, I would definitely say try to look for people that have already done it or are physically in that country and can give you tangible perspectives on their experiences so that it's not just like theoretical or what you see in the media or the American media, which, as we all know, definitely has a great way of changing the way that you should think and forcing their opinions on you, whereas most people should be able to make their own opinions and come up with their own beliefs based on their own viewpoints and their experiences. So the other nice thing that goes with living abroad is you have cultural experiences that you just can't get in the United States. I mean, yeah, you might have some sections within a city or a state that are known to be that historical culture. Texas is known for a lot of the Spanish culture, and like Louisiana is the Cajun or French style. It's, definitely mixed in like Tex-Mex or Cajun flair, where it's a little bit of Louisiana French mix. I don't know a ton of history, but you really don't get a lot of cultural experiences whenever you live in the United States, unless you go to like New York, which seems to be the most diverse state that we have in the United States. But even then, there's way better ways to get that hit of cultural diversity whenever you actually go abroad and you see it firsthand, from people that are actually doing it. So if you do want new perspectives, if you don't want a different idea or viewpoint on certain matters, I would consider moving abroad, or at least trying it out, going for 2 weeks or a month and just seeing if you actually like living outside of your country. Maybe Japan or Spain or Italy or Europe or Russia. It's not as bad as people think it is. Yes, call me naive, but I've been to Russia 4 times now, and just seeing personally, I genuinely cannot say that it is a terrible place to be. I think a lot of people there are very loving, especially whenever you're in the family, whenever you're part of a family or can get in with a couple friends. Like, they're very welcoming, they're very loving, and they give generously to you. And I think that's something that a lot of Americans need to learn from a little bit. I think the nice thing, and this is ironic because moving to Russia is historically very cold, but the climate changes of moving abroad. I mean, you could even move to another state, but the climate changes of moving abroad is quite nice because in some countries like Ecuador, it is consistently 75 to 52 year round. There's winters, but it's historically is going to be 72 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, anywhere in that range, which is insane because a ton of countries out there are set up geographically to where they're not extremely hot or extremely cold really at any point during the year. So that's something to think of. If you wanted just a different change of pace, a different change of weather, it's worth considering to move abroad for that reason. Now, the next thing is, I guess it depends on who you ask, but potentially lower crime in terms of moving abroad outside of the U.S. I cannot say that the United States is extremely safe. You do see a ton of horrendous things happen all over the world, but same thing happens in our own borders, and it seems like it's only getting worse as the poverty levels start to increase and just things get more expensive. Naturally, crime goes up whenever there's areas of poverty. That happens universally across the world, but just speaking from personal experience, going abroad to all these other countries, the level or the fear of walking down the street at certain times of the day just isn't as common because there are plenty of countries around the world that you can walk down the street at 2 a.m. if you wanted to. Really nothing wrong because, for example, Saudi Arabia, for the majority of people, there's essentially zero crime because the punishments for doing so is extremely high. So, just speaking from what I view to be valuable for people to travel, if you're looking for potentially lower crime, it might be something to think of. Yeah, there are states in the United States that have low crime rates, but you're going to pay a pretty penny for them. Majority of the time, but you go 20 minutes over, you're very likely in a bad neighborhood. So it's a hit or miss. But I sometimes, if not all the time, feel safer across other countries' borders. And call me naive again, but that's just how I feel. That's how I see it. So I'd consider the same for you if you are planning to go abroad. See for yourself. But the other really nice thing that I think a lot of people can agree with me on is the fact that medical costs in the United States are abnormally high, and I don't think anyone should really feel afraid to go to the hospital, should feel afraid to go get medical checkups every year, go to the dentist, and do all of your basic necessities. There's plenty of people that do well for themselves financially and they can afford that stuff and they can afford basic checkups. But when it comes to emergencies, some kind of heart attack or, broken bones or some kind of internal bleeding, something that's critically, it needs immediate attention. It's awesome that we have the speed of service, but the fact that whenever all is said and done and you get hit with a $20, $40, $50,000 bill it's not okay. It doesn't make sense to take so much out of someone's pocket and people go into debt for the rest of their lives for that. And that doesn't seem right. And, I've heard plenty of stories of people that need brain surgery and the estimated costs all in were $500,000 or more. Same thing with back surgery. So it's a ridiculous thing to even worry about. Whereas in other cultures, you go into their medical system or you go in for a checkup and, you walk out of there with a $40, $50 payment and you just wonder what the hell happened? Speaking again from experience, went to the dentist, did all of my basic tests, testosterone. I did blood work, EKG, all the hard examinations, really everything that you would need to do in order to make sure that you're a healthy human being. And the all-in cost was $100, $150 with the dentist fixing my teeth added into that, which is crazy. So no question that would be a couple grand in the States. But, if you're looking for lower medical costs, if you are getting to the point where you're nearing retirement, it is worth considering moving abroad. Is it going to be easy? I don't know. I mean, it depends on how attached you are to stuff, to materialism, and how much crap you have laying around the house. So, if you are one that is pretty lenient, like doesn't really get too attached to a ton of stuff, it makes that move a lot easier. But to each their own. I think the really nice thing here, and this goes without saying, is just the quality of life is better. Most, if not everything, is going to be more affordable in any country outside the United States, except for maybe 1 to 3 other countries. And to that note, a lot of people are considering putting their kids in college and in universities abroad because the student costs or their student loans aren't really a thing. It's 1% of the total cost that you would find in the U.S. In some cases, it's completely free to go to university, and comparatively, some European colleges or universities are $1,000 to $3,000, or maybe call it $5,000 all in, whereas here it's like $80,000 to $250,000 for below average education. You talk to some of these European students, and they are extremely knowledgeable, and they are way more intelligent than the generic United States education. It's I'm speaking directly from experience because I've been in interviews with people from around the world from time to time, and they definitely know more than I do, and we're the exact same age. And it's not just that one person; it's the median, like the average person, seems to know much more than the standard American citizen. But call it what it is. You can argue with me on that, but unless you've had a handful of conversations with people from around the world, I think it definitely becomes more clear the education system needs a little bit of work here. Instead of being profitable and being a private business, maybe it should be more of a government backed thing. But our government's, we'll get on a tangent with that later. The other really nice thing that comes with going abroad is just the fact that everything is much more affordable. So you are going to be able to buy significantly more things whenever you go abroad. You can, let's say you take $2,000 to $3,000 to South America, or in our case, Russia. You can live like an absolute king. Whereas $2,000 to $3,000 a month for a family of 3 gets you, just enough to really keep going. And that's with car payments, student loans, mortgage or rent, and then all of your living costs, daycare, everything factored in. You're scraping by with $2,000 to $3,000 a month in total income. And with that same exact income, you put it over there in their countries. You're living like royalty, because most rents or mortgages are under $1,000. Like, you can find a studio apartment in most countries for $200 to $500. 2 bedrooms going to be in that range, and then like a really nice 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom apartment will be maybe $800 to $1,000 in most cases, and that's incredible. And then again, medical costs being very low, student costs being quite low as well. Food, in some cases you'll probably spend around the same, whatever, $200 to $400 on average USD, and then everything else is significantly lower. So insurance costs, utilities. It's not uncommon for you to live like, you could technically be a millionaire if you're making 60, 70 grand a year USD and you go abroad to some of these countries. And, I can't say that you would want to go to every single country around the world, but there are some that make a ton of sense if you are considering to have a higher quality of life. Ecuador, South America, Colombia are some that are top of mind. Argentina is often talked about. That's really pretty, and I have a lot of people that I've chatted with that say they love it. In most South American countries, Italy, Spain, London, yes and no. They're historically a little bit higher in price, but you are still going to save significantly more than you could in the States. So, the fact that you can get so much more bang for your buck for the exact same dollar is, to me, a clear enough reason to go. and they're constantly finding ways to innovate and improve their cities. You know, it's very walkable a lot of times. A lot of these European countries and most countries around the world, like outside of the US, have very easy ways to get around and means of transportation. So there's buses, typically subways, all sorts of taxis going in and out of the city. So you're not going to have many problems at all getting from point A to point B pretty quickly. And I think for that reason, it's that much more of a reason to get out and about. I mean, you'll have a healthier lifestyle. The food is much higher quality. So a lot of reasons that I think you should consider moving abroad. Now, you know, it's easy for me to say this, and some of you guys might have multiple kids, and you know, or you might be well up in age, and you know, I'm not saying one reason or another that you need to. It's just things to consider. You know, my favorite things about it: it's more affordable, higher quality of life. You, in some cases, it's often safer. You know, I think for those reasons alone, it's nice. But also, you just get to experience new things. You get new perspectives. Like, there's tons of entrepreneurs that have built businesses because of a trip that they had abroad. Like, I believe Steve Jobs went to India once, and he came back, and that inspired him to start Apple. So it's you know, it just does a lot for you that you just can't learn from books and from just living your life every day, like in your standard routine. And you know, at the same time, you got to think the standard way of life is work until you're 60, 65, and then one day you can retire and ride off into the sunset. But why not do that earlier? You know, Tim Ferriss talks about the mini retirements, taking a month to 3 months off at a time, and go explore, go live a little bit. You know, you'd be surprised at how much your dollar can travel in most countries. And you know, if you can save up a handful of US dollars and go abroad, why not? You know, it's really it's not nearly as difficult as some people might think. And yeah, I mean, the conflict with work might be a challenge for some people that are in office, but I think I would highly recommend finding a remote job. You know, it does give you that flexibility. And again, you could find part-time work to go abroad. And, you know, I could sit here all day and talk about ways to do it, but, you know, nothing really matters until you take that next step. I would say just heavily consider the points made today. And if you haven't already, check out Financial Freedom and Me. If you did enjoy any of these points covered, leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit some buttons. That would really help me out. But yeah, I try to give you guys practical advice along the way. Hopefully something in this video gave you some inspiration, but I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. God bless, and stay tuned.